Good. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So welcome everyone to this first webinar of the WeTransform project. We're very happy to have you and to showcase our work so far. This webinar is titled What Jobs and What Workers in Automated and Digital Transport Services. And the objectives are firstly to raise awareness on our activities in WeTransform, secondly to present our first results, and thirdly to collect feedback for upcoming activities. Our agenda for today, well, we start with a very short introduction from my side. I'm, by the way, Manon Cohen, project officer at Polis Network, responsible for communication and stakeholder engagement in the WeTransform project. Then we will have the presentation of the project by the project coordinator, Cristina Pronello from the University Politecnico di Torino. Then we will have a presentation of our report of actions and initiatives related to transport automation, and other transitions by our leader of the task 3.1, Yanis Tirenopoulos from the University of West Attica. Then we will have a presentation of the analysis of workforce barriers, needs, skills, and challenges by Helen Tanopoulou from the University of the Aegean, who is leader of the work package 3 of WeTransform. Then we will have 15 minutes questions and answers. And we will finish with a poll for upcoming activities led by Amalia Polidoropoulou from the University of the Aegean too. So now I will leave the floor to our coordinator, Cristina Pronello. Cristina, you can share your screen.
Thank you so much, Manon. Is it impossible to start? Okay, now probably it's feasible. Yes, perfect. Oops. So I hope you can see perfect. You can see the screen?
Yes, in big mode, that's perfect.
Right, perfect. So good morning, good now close to lunch to everyone. I hope that all those recorded people, registered people are here for just knowing more about our project. We know that WeTransform is a project funded by Horizon 2020 under the call Analyzing the Effect of Automation and Digitalization on Transport Labor Force. And this is our main aim. Our main aim is to try to answer to the Commission question, big question, because it's really a big question, through a new approach, we could say, not so much used so far in this kind of issue, that is a participatory approach. We would like to use, and we are doing that, the collective intelligence, so intelligence of all the people involved in the project and outside the project, to try to support us in generating, create really an agenda that is different from the previous ones, and evidence-based, action-oriented, and how to say, the result of a really common and collaborative approach. This is because it's super difficult, more than difficult, to try to find solution and to minimize the potential risks of increase of automation and digitalization on the labor force in the transport sector. So for doing that, it's quite evident that we need a mass of people, and our consortium is the first part of this mass of people involved in this delicate and challenging issue. Our consortium is made by 34 partners from 12 European countries and 4 overseas countries. That means US, Canada, Japan, and Korea. So it's very, very wide consortium. And very wide also in terms of coverage of expertise. We cover all the transport modes from air to maritime to road and railway transport. So all the modes are covered with experts in companies and universities in each of these modes. And effectively also our, how to say, typology in terms of partners is very wide. We have original equipment manufacturers, we have automotive sectors involved, we have transport operators of different typologies, means railway sector, road sector, public transport sectors, and also some technological advanced companies, included SME. In which way we want to try to face this important challenge? through a very logical and straightforward organization of the project and methodology, starting from the creation of this ecosystem allowing the collaborative approach that will be used to collect data, co-create knowledge, then assess the impacts of automation that we have found thanks to our data collection, and finally to formulate the action-oriented agenda. Let's start from the ecosystem. That is the most important part of the project because it is, how to say, the big box containing everything. The Living Hub. Living Hub is a sort of transformation, evolution of the traditional concept of Living Lab. Living Hub is a transnational, is a sort of virtual big body that includes several actors that are mainly trade unions, all the transport operators and companies working in the transport sector, the intermediate actors that are R&D, research and development, so university and research center, and in the middle, the citizens that for us are the workers, that are those who will suffer or not suffer the effect of automation and digitalization. According to our agenda, we for sure will hope that they will not suffer any negative effect. What is important in this ecosystem? The exchange of value. We will create knowledge and value, and this value will allow to us to respond to the Commission request and challenge. And this Living Hub is, as you can see, formed by the actors I just mentioned, including also the technology developers, and supported by some external bodies, that is the Stakeholder Forum, that are all the companies, universities, workers, trade unions, and so on. So the same actors that are not in the consortium, but are outside. But this is our basis for collecting further information, further knowledge. And advisory board, that is a set of experts in the topic we are dealing with that will support us in addressing better the views, in make some criticism, raising some criticism, and supporting us in finding solution. All that this ecosystem will support the market, customers, so the workers, that will be the final receipt and the final end users of our results. Which is our process of co-creation in this Living Hub? Is the creation first of Living Hub with the proper actors. And you can see how so many are the actors that we have mobilized so far. Really, we are spanning across all the typologies of different stakeholders, including, as I said, the citizens. Then we have decided inside this unbelievable Living Hub, because it's really unbelievable and challenging in terms also of managing and maintaining, to organize 2 workshops per year. So far, we have finished 3 workshops. The first one, unfortunately, due to the COVID, online. The second one, hybrid, partly physical, partly online. The third one, finally in presence in Riga last June. And now we are approaching to the last 3 workshops during also during the project. The next one in January, I will have the slides at the end of my presentation in Brussels, the next one in Vienna, and the final one in Torino. Besides that, we will do most other activities, interviews and focus group with workers, employers, with also the employees, so worker employees and the different meanings, and internal to the consortium, because we have so many companies and so many stakeholders internally, but also externally to the consortium to enlarge the view. And then also the engagement of citizens to organize social dialogues and ensure what is very important for Europe, that is inclusivity and equity, non-discriminatory approach, and so on. What we have found so far, you will hear after me our first results. So the result and outcomes of our in-depth analysis of what has been produced so far, you will see that unfortunately or fortunately for us, it depends on the point of views, not so much has been produced in terms of new solution or something reduction policies and so on. So this will be really our task, and it's quite challenging because we have not so much behind us developed so far. Then we have analyzed barrier gaps, opportunities, benchmark, and this is what will be presented later on. And we have started also to create new knowledge in the Living Hub, thanks to the thematic areas. This has been really an exciting exercise we did, because as I told you, we have not found so much knowledge on this topic. We said we need to create really new one. And the thematic areas was the new tool and new and first approach we used to try to go in depth in the topics. And we individuated 8 thematic areas that you can see have allowed us to really have new knowledge. We have understood which are new and taking avenues to go on. That is what we are doing now. New also thematic areas to discuss, some thematic areas not worthy to be continued. These are very first important results. Then we have understood how the managers of the future will have to be trained, which attitude they will have to have, worldwide views, competencies, new skills, and so on, and how to manage the transition. That is really the most challenging aspect so far. And finally, how to overcome the barrier of politics. And this was something emerged very strongly from our discussion. This means that we have decided to imply more and more politicians in supporting us to have a policy agenda that will be, for sure, widely recognized and accepted. Now, what we are doing, we are starting to evaluate the impacts we have found so far, co-create new knowledge about the impacts, about the potential solution, because this will feed the agenda. So this is, I'm concluding with my invitation to all of you to participate to our next workshop in Brussels, 19th of January, is our 4th workshop that will try to, with your help, to define new scenarios and to investigate some legal issues that must be solved just to allow that the future scenarios that are those are desired will be implemented. I'm finishing saying that this is our final outcome, the policy agenda. The formulation policy agenda will follow the same approach to co-create the knowledge that we have followed so far. We will use collective intelligence, means that all the actors in the chain will be involved. We will hear all their point of views, all their experiences, because without that, we will not have the possibility to really write a policy agenda that will be credible, fact-oriented, so factual, not plenty of, how to say, opinions or potential vision on the future. Is not what we want to do. And finally, we will try, in the final outcome, to leave in heritage to the others, colleagues, companies, stakeholders, a living hub that is working, that could be used for any other challenges in the future. I thank you so much for your patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear Christina. I think that was very clear. If there are any questions about this presentation, please either type them in the question and answer section of the Zoom webinar, or keep them for the Q&A moment that we will have after the 2 presentations. I will just share my screen.
There is a question at the moment, I think, to Christina.
Then we will keep it for the question and answer time. Okay, so thank you very much, Christina. And now I would like to welcome on the virtual stage, sorry, can you see my screen? Yes. Yanis Tirinopoulos, professor at the University of West Attica, who is leader of the task 3.1, inventory and analysis. Yanis, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Manon. I'm afraid that you have to share your screen with my presentation. I couldn't fix the problem, so...
No problem.
You have to help me on this.
Yes. Can you see my screen?
No. Yes. Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Just let me know when you want me to switch slides.
Yes, please. Yeah. Thank you, Manon. And Christina was very fast. I'll try to do the same. I would like to welcome all participants also in this webinar of the project. I will try to provide a short outline of the review of actions and initiatives related to transport automation. This is the first actually technical activity of the project. It is a task 3.1. So please, next slide. The objective of this task was twofold. First, to conduct a comprehensive review of transport automations derived from research programs for all modes of transport and sectors, but also automations from other selected sectors. And second, to perform a review of the effects and impacts of digitalization and automation on the workforce derived from a wide range of reports, studying, and research articles. Next, please. The end result of the work performed in this task was the deliverable D3.1, which includes first a detailed listing and analysis of research projects, initiatives, and operational cases of automation in the transport sector, but also in other selected sectors. 4 outstanding systems currently in operation are presented in the report as best practices. And also the results from the review performed on a vast number of research articles and other documentation related to the effects and impacts of digitalization and automation on the workforce. The latter was achieved thanks to an artificial intelligence tool that was developed by the project, especially for this purpose. The tool actually helped us to collect and review more than 200 documents. Next, please. Yes. Coming to some of the findings, the review revealed that the impacts of automation and digitalization on the workforce has not been addressed by research projects at all. This reveals actually the gap that currently exists in the literature as regards research efforts, and this project actually aims to fill in this gap. Moreover, we found out that impacts caused by operational systems are not public, so we do not have this important information to further analyze. Next, please. Yes. On the other hand, major organizations such as the United Nations, the European Commission, and many others have analyzed those impacts either universally or from different standpoints. In order to achieve a wider perspective of the subject, we also examined the impacts of automation on the workforce in other sectors other than the transport, because we believe that many of those impacts are more or less the same in many sectors. Next, please. Well, now I will present some of the key results included in the report. This figure represents in a setting similar to PESTEL framework some important key factors acting as drivers that have major impact on the future of work in transport automation. The figure highlights that the future work is multifaceted and involves a quite wide range of factors. At the technological level in particular, you can see the 4 so-called disruptive technologies. Please, next. The figure in this slide refers to the degree of exposure to automation for various characteristics of workers with low qualifications, with which are low skilled, with low education, and older ones are more exposed to automation, and their jobs are at higher risk. On the contrary, well-educated, high-skilled, and younger workers are less exposed to automation, and their jobs are more secured. I would also add in these results that the ILO, the National Labour Organization, points out that the demand for high-level qualifications for workers will be even higher in the near future. Even more qualifications and experience are needed for workers to secure good jobs. Also, we found out that early retirement is also another impact of the automation that affects mainly, of course, the older workers. Various organizations report that older generations are disadvantaged in an increasingly high-tech world, so skills there can quickly become outdated. So in the end, the younger workers are more able to deal with automation-driven jobs than the older ones. Next, please. Oh, yes. Oh, no, the previous one. Yes. Thank you. Another common finding in the literature is that job tasks that will experience growth in the coming years require skills related to data analytics, artificial intelligence, active learning, and so on. You can see some indicative skills in the slide. On the other hand, jobs that involve repetitive and routine tasks, as well as customer interface, are at high risk of being replaced by automated systems. Yes, please. Next one. Yeah. In this slide, I included some of the statements and opinions of the stakeholders that participated in the first workshop of the project, as Christina said, that which took place 1.5 years ago. You can see the various skills needed in specific modes and transport infrastructures according to the opinion of the participants. I find their expectations quite interesting. Next, please. In the state-of-the-art review of actions and projects, we found 32 European research projects either completed in the last 7 years or are in progress. We also found 27 systems operating in the transport sector, but also in other selected ones like manufacturing and construction. We also identified 28 initiatives meaning non-research projects, platforms, actions, and other ones from Europe, USA, Australia, and Japan. Next, please. In the review, we identified 5 key application areas of automation and digitalization in the transport sector. These are metro systems, intralogistics operations, container terminals, airports, and driving. You can see in the slide some of the most important activities and technologies applied. These are the 5 areas with the highest penetration of automation and digitalization in the transport sector. Next, please. So, closing, it seems that the most important impact of automation and digitalization on the workforce is the job losses, displacement, or distraction. This is a common finding more or less for all the sectors, I suppose, especially in the transport sector. Some organizations report that more than 50% of jobs will soon be automated or are likely to be displaced due to automation in the near future. Also, as I said before, the jobs of workers low skilled with low qualifications, with low education, and older ones are at higher risk since they are more exposed to automation. Next, please. And the review of actions and projects showed that automation and digitalization have a much higher degree of penetration in container terminals, airports, logistics, and metro in relation to other transport infrastructures. On the other hand, it seems that major research investment have been allocated to the automotive industry and especially to the autonomous or automated vehicles. So the next one, and actually I concluded, you may download the D3.1 report at the website of the project, and I remain at your disposal for any question. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, dear Yanis, for this great presentation. I think it gave a very good overview of our project, of this report and what it aims at. I have a lot of questions, but for the audience, please do not hesitate to type your questions in the Q&A also during the presentations, and we will take them into account for the Q&A session. And now, sorry, I will start again to share so I can share the right presentation. Yeah.
No, I'll be sharing, don't worry.
Exactly. I would like to invite to the stage Helen Tanopounou, who is leader of the Work Package 3 and who is a professor at the University of Aegean. Helen, the floor is yours.
Right. Let me first of all make a small adjustment to what you said. I'm not the leader, it's Amalia who is the leader on our behalf. I am the most talkative one, but I will try to be brief. I hope you can all see my presentation. Can you?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, good, excellent. So it's Amalia Poliveropoulou who is going to conduct the polls, who is the leader, but the university is the leader, and I'm one of the key authors of the report on the analysis of work skills, which seems like a dull and rather morose and foreboding title, but it is not, because if you look at the second one, first of all, there is a glimpse of hope in the usual green sustainable color, and that is that behind all that, if we address the issues correctly, we can find out the real opportunities and we can turn this thing on its head. So this is me and my other two co-authors who placed ourselves into a very core part of the knowledge co-creation work package 3, task 3.2, which was exactly to find out what are the gaps, existing gaps, the barriers, the needs and the skills, and all that related, of course, to the workforce and the impact automation and digitalization has on them. So we are key in creating the first set of actions after all that. But first, we need to identify which were these barriers, needs, and all these things that need to be turned on their head and be sort of compensated in terms of impact on the workforce. So what did we do? We hit the target audience with 3 successive actions. After our literature review and the input we had, you had a very nice presentation of the 3.1 review by Professor Tirinopoulos. We went into the second workshop, which took place physically. That was a good thing. And we were able there through the focus groups to get the first feel of what all these barriers, needs, skills, and challenges are in practice. Through a poll we conducted at the end of the workshop, and through a survey that we launched on that day, but continued on and was targeting basically stakeholders in the transport and shipping industry, we were able to get the material that I'm going to present to you as the results of this task. The task that were underlying our approach was that we had to monitor the forces acting on the workforce to identify barriers, and as I said, also that hidden treasure of opportunities, and do an analysis of the challenges all this create for the workforce, and also identify which groups could be more vulnerable to this perfect storm of automation and digitalization in a world in a constant crisis for the last decades, hitting the workforce all at the same time. So for the focus groups, we were able to get the material through very well constructed, through the cooperation of our other work package 3 partners, such as Polito, for instance. We had a nice form, and we were able to put down the key material that we managed to draw out of these reports. And then we were able to tap on the gaps and see that they did correspond to a large extent to some ideas that we all had, but you need to validate them, and you need to validate them through industry. So governance of change, it's missing. Limited economic resources, we don't have enough to tackle all that. There is not really a strategic plan. And most of all, do we have a common vision of how this should be? We looked at success and failure factors, and that complemented the work by the report 3.1 that Yanis presented. And then we targeted the barriers. I'm going to run you through, because the time is very limited, the basic ones that we discovered. In terms of cultural ones, well, as you're going to see, in terms of ranking, as we managed to deduce out of the results of the analysis of the focus groups and the polls and the survey, the cultural barriers seem to be ranking highest in terms of subjective barriers, as I would put them. So you have workforce perceptions, you have distrust on automation. We have been through that again in history. Educational barriers, which are, of course, key to give us, as a result, which direction the new skills should be going. Then we have also demographic barriers, because, of course, the digital education gap is highly correlated with how many years you are on the job and when you started your career. And that, of course, led us also to look at the link between that and the barriers which are technological, but can be addressed also through education. And then we had the economic barriers here that, of course, they are related to some of the regulatory gaps that we're going to discuss at the very end. So we also found out that bureaucracy is not helping out in the effort to address all that. So we ran polls in the area of skills, and what we found out, of course, was that the technological skills and the higher cognitive skills, that is analytical skills, were the ones that ranked higher. And in terms of the questionnaire, we also went on asking further questions. One of them was to assess the relation of the people who actually replied to any training they had. We found out that quite a few had, but this should not actually make us believe that half of the workforce or more have really the appropriate training. Remember, these were the people who actually replied to our questionnaire. So they were much more sensitized to the whole issue than others. So we are continuing the exercise. What ranked higher in terms of barriers and gaps was inadequate training and lack of information on automation and digitalization. And this correlates with my last comment as well. So the questionnaire gave us more insight, and it also allowed us to do a first ranking and a first sort of prioritization of what is perceived as the most important barrier, gap, and what is the biggest threat. Apart from what was, I think, intuitively understandable, that is the limited training, the lack of expertise, the most important skills being the analytical ones and the information ones, people were afraid for the jobs. So loss of jobs and repercussions in terms of income were the ones that people were most worried about. And in terms of what we could find as the most important subjective barrier, that was the cultural barrier, the whole address of the issue of automation and digitalization needs to be reset on a better basis. We also assessed that there are barriers and gaps in the organization, management, and regulation. And of course, that the demographic and skills gap is the one which is turning the older members of the workforce most vulnerable to the impending change, perhaps also a change of a business paradigm, but this is out of scope for discussing it now. So this was, in a nutshell, what we found. I hope it was explanatory enough, and I didn't take an awful lot of your time.
You were fantastic. Thank you, Helen. Perfectly on time.
Okay, good.
And now we can go on with the question and answer session. I'll just share my screen again. This one. Here we are. Okay, so now it's time for, the question and answer session. We had one question in the question and answer of the chat, which was about the airports. It was actually to Christina.
Yes, it's my fault because I answered writing and this disappeared, but I can articulate a bit more the question. As I said, I am anticipating that for sure we are covering the air transport, and also the answer, the question was related to the drones. What we are looking for is related to all the transport modes. So for sure, a transport is included. We have Leonardo as a partner of the project that is a very well-known companies worldwide in the defense, aerospace, and helicopters, so also drones. So we have one partner related to this sector for sure. The aim was to have partners covering at least all the transport modes. And just to give you some small information, just but useful to understand how we are covering this issue. In the last workshop in Riga, in June, last June, we had in some group discussion, some focus groups, there were quite a lot of people coming from the air transport sector. Some people work also in the tower controls and so on. And we have learned a lot about some difficulties in the air transport, both at long distance, but also more, what to say, local ones and related to the nodes, the airports. According to the difficulties they have, I just anticipate, for example, that they told that effectively one of the main points is not only, as Yannis said, related to the literature, not really, it's a question of, or not always, a question of age or lower high skill. We have some managers, so senior managers also, that, yes, are older probably than the young manager, but it's not that the point, that had some difficulties in trying to go further in dealing with the automation and digitalization. So a big point is not only to train properly or reskill, upskill the workers, white collar, blue collar, but also the senior managers, because some of them have a sort of old-fashioned concept and vision. And this is what they need to refresh. And sometimes workers at the lower level are faster in adopting a new vision than their manager. And the second point is that these managers are sometimes, as we could say, the ham in the sandwich. Why? Because they have some issues related to the lower level they have to manage, but they have strong pressures from for the public companies, even more the owners of these companies that could be usually are politicians, means they say they govern the region or the cities. And so these divisions related to what should be the future from the owners of these companies, and the vision of what should be the future related to what the company sees sometimes are clashing. And the point is that if the pressure of your owners is stronger, or you perceive that you have to obey, this creates a big problem, because you are not able to face the challenge, manage the transition, and go really further in overcoming the difficulties. So we are also staying in this fuzzy environment, not so clear, quite anchored in the past, and not able to go to the future. This is one of the big problems we should solve, also thanks to the agenda. Just to make an example, and another is related to the tower control. It's something I didn't know, I discovered during the discussion, and it came out that the local authorities, as we had some parts related to the role of local authorities and local governments, have not so power to manage properly their territory in terms of innovation, but they are subjected to the higher level of decision, for example, Europe. And when Europe decided the tower control has to be eliminated in some territories, so no more there, and shift in other countries, usually often in the last years we have seen a movement to and a shift to the Eastern European countries. This creates in the most traditional countries forming Europe, as Italy, France, or Germany, I'm speaking now about Italy, a specific case that was evoked, is that you will have a big impact in terms of job losses in that specific local environment in favor of other environments that are not ready really to manage this kind of innovation. And the safety level and the control and monitoring is lower than before. So it's a lose-lose situation. All those issues must be solved for sure. And this is related all to air transport. Just to say we are covering that, yes, for sure.
Thanks a lot for this extensive and very interesting answer. We have now a few questions in the Q&A. The first one is about the presentations. Yes, they will be shared on our website and publicly available. And then there are two questions, I think one for Helen and one for Yannis. Maybe we'll start with the one for Yannis because his presentation came first, and also in the rank of the tasks, it came first. Have you identified a specific directory with available research on a large rank of acceptability issues? How society accepts automation, unions, workers, and client passengers, and so on. So in your literature review, Yannis, have you identified anything about acceptance?
About acceptance? No, I haven't. It's a very short answer, but it is quite a straight one. About acceptance, no, we haven't found out any relevant funding about this.
Also not in other sectors than transport.
Yes. Well, other sectors we reviewed was manufacturing, construction, and retail industry. So we couldn't, of course, review all the sectors. It was impossible. But since Sasha said many of the impacts and effects more or less are the same in many sectors, we reviewed those ones which we found out that they have quite a high level of penetration of automation in those industries. So the review we performed on the impacts had to do with demographics, with the skills, the policy documents, and that will be pushed forward by the relevant agencies. But concerning acceptance, we didn't find any relevant.
Yeah, if I can just, oh yes, Christina, of course.
If I may just add some information, just to confirm what I said in my presentation at the very beginning, that literature is not so rich sometimes and useful for what we are doing. This was a problem. Effectively, on acceptance, there is no information. And we have tried effectively to overcome this gap in our group of discussion. And some would say some views, some information, not so extensive, but arrived. And for example, from other sector, as Yanni said, we also had in the first workshop, some people representing banking sector. That is the first sector that started to deal with digitalization. And definitely about the acceptance, what came out is that was not a point discussed or investigated. They simply introduced digitalization, and the workers were passive in this process. And what they did was just try to help them, the older generation mainly, help them to go to the retirement in a smoother way. So there is a sort of way, and unfortunately, in all the sectors, this is coming out continuously. All the different industries are trying to help older people, or those are more difficult to reskill or upskill, helping and accompanying them to the retirement. So I mean, no genial solution for sure, just dealing with the reality in the, how to say, easiest way. That is, it's much easier to pay someone and facilitate going to retirement than find solutions that are really challenging to find. And the acceptance is not taken into account, because they said, you accept, you must accept. This is very sad.
Thank you very much.
Manon,
Time is running, yeah.
If you take the Q&A out, I can show in the question that is addressed to me about the opportunities.
Yes, of course. I was about to address now this question in any case.
Yeah.
So yeah, do you want to
If you
read it
take the
yourself?
slide out, I can share something, because
Okay.
it doesn't allow me to share something to
No
show
problem.
from the deliverable. Right, good. Yes, if you follow the presentation from the beginning, you remember I put a bright green star next to challenges, indicating precisely the fact that there are opportunities. And if I can show you from our deliverable, which should be, as all of them are, accessible through the site of the project, you can see the responses that came out from the public about opportunities, not guided in the form of questionnaire, although we were looking into that as well. And they do address, I believe, a number of thoughts that you expressed in the question. I have no idea who asked the question, but it's exactly that. That also, may I add to what has already been discussed, is that through finding out about barriers, gaps, we also tapped on the level of acceptance or not of the automation and digitalization. And it transpired from the comments to open-ended questions that we had. So thank you for the question.
Thanks a lot, Helen. There is one last question for Yanis that maybe we will take, and then we will go to the poll because we're soon at the end of the webinar. About the scheme on key factors, Yanis, you indicated economic, social, legal, and technological driving factors. But what about driving factors that result from the combination of these factors, like digital platforms? Are you also exploring this?
Well, to a certain extent, yes, we also explored the combination of some specific factors. I agree with what the question implies, that of course there is a relevance between social, economic drivers. So I suppose that you couldn't put it in the reporting combination, but yes, we did some analysis of combining the different drivers which have an impact on the future work. You can find in the report some sentences that demonstrate these combinations. I don't know if you want to elaborate a little bit further on this, but perhaps it is fine.
Yeah, maybe if you want to elaborate more, it's an anonymous question, so I don't know who asked it, but feel free to add another question, and maybe Yanis can answer it in writing as well.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, there's also a question about what job losses mean, if it is people who will lose their jobs or jobs that will be eliminated. Maybe Helen can take this one, and then we will end, and we will just share your contacts so you can answer further questions by email.
If you had the chance to, because I went through the slides a little fast, you had the chance to take a look at what people replied in terms of estimates of jobs to be gained and jobs to be lost. Most of the answers, about 3/4 and more than 2/3, were looking at changes of the range between 0 and 10%. So there were much fewer who were looking at a higher percentage. If there is some kind of balance between the two, that won't really mean a change, a total change in the business process paradigm. Shifts happen all the time. But we have two questions that I think we can address in the following webinar, Manon, which are we changing the business paradigm through automation and digitalization? And are we able, because we talked about opportunities, to put it closer to a sustainable business paradigm and not the business as usual, purely economic-based paradigm that we are following up to now? This is a challenge for the sustainability era that we need to create, or there will be no era to come.
Excellent. I've taken notes for the next webinar. Yeah, we will. Christina, do you want to say something very quickly? Because
very quickly, just to confirm what Ellen said, just an experience I had recently, a couple of weeks ago, from a guy in Uzbekistan working in the sector of energy, and we discussed about this topic and the job losses, and he said, no, absolutely not. Effectively, as much less than we can imagine. And effectively, this could create the opposite effect, that probably in some sectors that could be more jobs. Means the only issue is just to try to convert and change your mind about the typology of work to be done. So just very fast.
Thank you very much. Amalia, I leave the floor to you.
Yes, thank you very much, everybody, for joining our workshop. I'm here for the fun part of it. Just 2 questions for you, 2 polls. We would like to hear from you, and please select the 3 areas training should be targeted. Next training should be targeted in order to deal with the impact of automation. on the workforce, and should this be with data protection skills, analytic skills, cybersecurity training, soft skills, logical skill analysis, artificial intelligence, technical training, team building, legal training, and management of change skills. Please rank as you wish, and we will see immediately, I guess, the results.
Amalia, just a question. We cannot respond, but for the respondents, how they can rank?
They will just select the top three right now with this.
And this
bias.
will be automatically ranked 1, 2, 3.
No. There will just be three top ones.
Okay. It's just because probably could be a question from the respondents, so I asked the question instead of them.
So is the audience able to check?
So far, we have 6 replies.
Okay, super.
Waiting a little bit longer, maybe 1
Good,
or
so
2
we're on
minutes.
our way.
It's a pity we cannot participate.
Yes, but perhaps we would bias the results.
So far,
Absolutely.
about the trainings, data analytics skills is winning. And about the priority areas for action, it's the skills that is considered most important, and the company governance. But I'm waiting a little bit longer because now we have more answers coming in.
Okay.
And the poll has been open for only 2 minutes. I'll share the results in, I would say, 1 minute.
It doesn't show the question anymore.
Okay.
No. I was just Manon asking me whether I could answer the last question, the Q&A section, and
okay,
went
okay,
there,
okay.
but they are not there anymore. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, 30 seconds. Decide yourselves quickly.
I'm also anxious to see the results.
So, Amalia, we will use these results for the work package 4 or the task 3.3? For what are we going to use these results?
We're going to use it at the task 3.3 to together with the results and the discussions that we had today. Also, the very important questions that were set today. And from this on, we will try to build the next training also ideas for the future.
Okay, thank
So
you.
do you have the results?
Yes, I will share now. Can you see them?
Yes,
Yes.
so we have data analytics skills. Yes, really important. And that's what also we are trying to do at the universities as well.
Cyber security is a technical training. No, the top ones are technical training with data analytics and cybersecurity.
Yes.
And soft skills and artificial intelligence come next.
Yeah.
Yes, we were expecting these actually the soft skills because these are really important, both social and emotional intelligence skills.
It's the same way they came up in the
question.
report. Yeah.
Yes.
And for the second question, priority areas, skills, company governance, and pay or wage protection.
We cannot see the second
We cannot say it.
question.
You need to change a little the.
Just
We
scroll
see
down.
just the
You have to
first
scroll
one.
down.
Just scroll down, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you
So
republish?
they responded also in the second one. No, that's perfect. So this is these are the actions we need to take with regards automation, the impact of automation and digitalization, company governance, yes, skills, company governance, and pay wage protection are really important. All of them are quite of important. These 5 aspects we have put there. We have found them also really important in the previous questionnaires. Thank you for giving us also your opinion. It's really important. We are going to stress on this and go much more into detail. The living hubs are open for everybody, so please follow what we are doing and really participate, because this is the purpose. They are living hubs. Everybody from their expertise, their and what their interests might participate in our living hubs and promote the knowledge and actually the future of the impacts of automation on transportation.
I
Thank
think
you.
the respondents to the polls were very good. What did they say? They said, manage the transition through better skills and pay as well, and everything will be all right.
Excellent conclusion. I think we need to end the webinar now to respect the time of our attendees. Thanks a lot for participating in this webinar, and continue to follow us on our homepage. We will publish the recording of this webinar, the presentations, and of course, include your insights in our future deliverables. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Other
Bye-bye.
webinars will follow.
Bye-bye.
Absolutely. The next one. Bye.
Bye-bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.